All right. Hello, KMMA Tribe Friends Family students. I am very excited today to have as a special guest my special team member, student, black belt friend, James, and Sensei James. We call him here around Krav Maga martial arts. And Sensei James, while I know not everybody that's going to be listening to this podcast knows you, so tell us a little bit about yourself and who you are, what you do.
Well, thank you for the introduction, sir. It's always an honor. So my name's Sensei James Gates. I started training back in 2014. Um, had a great time going all the way up through to 2018. And then my professional life took me in a different route. And I landed a job with Sig Sauer. So they required me to move to Jacksonville. And then I went off on that adventure, and unfortunately moving to Jacksonville meant I couldn't train here. But I got to see the firearms industry, got to learn a whole bunch of stuff that we always talked about in class. Like I remember Sensei Tom always talking about the firearm disarm, and he goes, and then you can tap rack and re-engage, or just keep it down here if you don't know. And I hate not knowing. So that's what kind of led me on that. Ended up getting sent up to Columbia University after that, and I ran their contract security team. And just recently came back here, and it was so perfect because the whole time I was away, I looked for something to kind of fill that gap from when I was gone, and I just nothing hit the right chords in Jacksonville or New York, and I turned down the job with Columbia to come take care of my family, and that's what led me back here. And it was just so perfect because I ended up back here.
Yeah.
So I've got experience in a whole bunch of other stuff outside of this.
Yeah.
But here now, one of the things I'm mainly doing is sewing into the lives, which is what I love.
Yeah. There's a couple things you told me kind of in the interview process when you came back, right? Because you came back first as a student, which was awesome, and everybody was so excited to see you again. And so first you made your reemergence that way, and all the other black belts were happy to see you back in classes and stuff. Um, and then and then at some point I hired you part-time, but you were still working someplace else part-time too.
Yeah.
And then we kind of just kept growing on each other. And then and then I was off for my birthday on that mountain in Georgia when I made that call to you.
Yep. I still remember that because I was playing with avocados when you did that.
I think you better specify. People are gonna think you have an avocado fetish or something. Yes.
So when I came back to Florida, one of the things is my dad, he doesn't have the physical ability that he had anymore. And so I needed to move home to be able to take care of the house because, our house was falling apart. He can't really, when he drinks his cup of coffee, it's not like us where we go like this. He's got to hold it with two hands and he's kind of
Yeah.
So the biggest thing for me was just moving back home. And in the meantime, I'm living with my parents to help get their house taken care of. But I needed something to do during the day. And I needed to make a little money for my own nest egg. And I always fell in love with Publix when I was a kid because the company talked about leadership, right? They don't hire managers from the outside. Well, my last job was managing 370 officers for Columbia University. I had a phone that was on 24/7, every emergency call I got, every scheduling conflict I got. So I was really managing a huge force of personnel. Um, so, the company being one of the top 100 to work for and the leadership and everything, I was like, you know what? I'll go work for them. So they started me off in the produce department, which is where the avocado stuff comes in. And, the company is great, don't get me wrong, but there's just nothing spiritually fulfilling about working there. And that's what I realized I was missing the most. And that's why the transition from just being a student here and remembering all the time I had sewing into people and remembering all the time teaching, when I was teaching the first time around before I left for SIG,
Yeah.
that was what was missing. And the more I got around, my former tribe and reacclimated with our tribe, the more I realized, stocking avocados just isn't for me.
Yeah, yeah,
I can't do that because I'm so bored and
yeah.
not really.
Well, and I just finished doing a YouTube video this morning on the importance of everybody figuring out what it is that they're called to do, and that that's what they should do. And so look, there's also nothing wrong with obviously that for the person who that's for, but it's interesting because the second uh thing that I remember on that discussion um is that you mentioned through the whole thing that even though the everything happens for a reason, it serves us well, and you mentioned that and the part that serves us well is that you got a lot of great leadership and sales and other experience through the things that you did, but you mentioned that you never really felt that you were fulfilling your calling or purpose, or and that you always had felt pulled back here.
Yeah.
And so of course that resonated with me because of, like I talked about this morning, I mean, that's all I want. I'm grateful for the ones that come through here because they're teaching while they're completing college or whatever. When we develop confident, competent black belt leaders, what we prepare them to do is to go off,
Mhm.
and be successful in the world at whatever they're called to do. But of course, I'm very grateful when I have those of you that decide that this is your calling and that you're going to be part of developing the next tribe of. And the other thing I'll say is that I remember some of the people in the tribe don't even know this because the truth is just the numbers are so much greater now that some of the traditions have kind of gone a little bit by the wayside. Who knows? Maybe I'll bring them back and just delegate the piece of it to each one of you. But remember back in the smaller crowd camps back in the day, I used to give everybody a nickname
Mhm.
based on something that happened at that crowd camp. And remember, I actually gave you the nickname leader
Mhm.
because I had observed just even amongst your peers the leadership qualities through the stress drills and through the things when people were going through hard times, the ability that you had to encourage and empower and all the things that we consider important to leadership, you had really well. And as I've said, now you've developed that even more. So I'm very proud and grateful to have you back in the tribe, being able to sow into the rest of our leaders. And as you know, and this will be kind of a public profession here, my total goal is for you to become, a high level manager at Krav Maga martial arts and help us as we grow this thing to whole nother levels. And but listen, if you're in the tribe listening, I'll just tell you this, as Sensei James works with you on the floor, you're gonna see what I mean. You're gonna feel great. You're gonna be grateful. So make sure that well, you don't have to make sure, he'll make sure that that happens.
Mhm.
Um, James, what do you love most? I'm going to talk to you first as a student, with the next question. What do you love most about training at Krav Maga martial arts?
Training as a student. That's a hard one to pick because there's just so much good about it. Um, I think the biggest way to describe it is what we do here. We always, as a student, I always felt like it was on the cusp of just being too out of my grasp,
Hmm.
right? Like I wasn't gonna get it, I wasn't gonna get it, I wasn't gonna get it. And then all of a sudden, yourself or Sensei Tom, uh, you just had a way of just making that 2 second correction, and it just resonated so well with me that I was so fired up that I finally got it, whether it was a specific technique or whether it was, going through the stress test. Um, so personally, as a student, that's one of the things I love is the challenge of the curriculum for what we do, but also the instructors' abilities, the ones that are my instructors, abilities to be able to get us through that challenge
Yeah,
in such a very positive and uplifting way.
that's awesome. That's awesome. And I, of course, I don't teach as much as I do anymore, but I enjoy teaching y'all's black belt class. Um, and you are here in both capacities, right? You still
Mhm.
continue to get your training from me, and you're now one of the instructors on the floor showing into the students. What do you enjoy most about that?
Oh, wow. That's a so what I enjoy the most about that is I enjoy being able to pull the intensity out of our students. I enjoy being able to finally get them to learn that technique the right way. And when you finally see the look in their eyes, like, I can do this, right? Or I just did this. That's one of the most powerful things for me. And then being able to sew into them and just watching their spirits take over, and the fact that we really truly have a very supportive tribe.
Yeah.
Everyone's uplifting to each other, everyone helps each other. I've watched adults my size work with, 3, 4-year-old kids holding the pads
Yeah.
and stuff. And normally you would think like, oh, the big guy doesn't really like holding the pad for that kid, obviously in a different capacity, more like a CIT.
Yeah.
But even mismatches and all kinds of other stuff
Yeah.
that have happened, and just watching people so into each other.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that's most powerful to me, is being a part of that culture and watching our students live up to that and watching them feed off of each other.
I love it. I love it. Now, so I asked you earlier, what you love most about training. This is a slightly different question, which is, as a person, what are some of the biggest benefits you've gained through your experience at Krav Maga martial arts?
Well, the first one is I'm no longer angry.
Mm.
That one was huge to me, and it's one that even my parents have noticed. It's when I first started training way back in 2014. I almost didn't start training because I was so full of anger.
Wow.
I didn't have any kind of purpose in my life. I didn't have any direction. I was just very angry all the time. And I almost didn't start training because I didn't want to hurt anybody.
Wow.
My anger was never directed at others. It was always directed at myself, and I just didn't know how to express it. Um, I mean, brass tacks, I used to punch holes in walls. And it's been a long time since I've done that, and I know I'll never do it again.
That's great.
But that's one of the biggest things for me, is that anger is just completely gone. I One, because I feel like I've found a purpose. Two, I'm sure you're familiar with the term Ronin.
Yeah.
A student without a teacher.
Yeah.
That's what I felt like when I was away.
Mm.
I felt like a student without a teacher. And when I'm here, I always feel like I have that mentorship, which helps guide me and shape me and mold me. And the amount of self-confidence. Most people actually get this mixed up, even though in my background, I've worked for the Department of Defense for a long time. I was never a soldier, but I still have people come up to me and they're like, hey, thanks for your service. I'm like, wasn't a soldier, never wore the uniform, worked very closely with the military, but they see that kind of confidence that I've gotten. They see
Yeah.
the way I carried myself, and they think, oh, he's got to be, he's got to be a prior soldier or a cop or a federal agent or something. It's the funniest thing, but that's the level of confidence that I've gained from training here, and also just the self-control.
Mm.
Like, I know now I can train with almost any partner in any situation, and I'll give them exactly what they need because I've learned enough control of myself to where I have the ability to do that.
That was amazing.
So those are some of the hugest benefits to me. And then the leadership. The leadership was like, when you gave me that, I will never forget that camp. I will absolutely never forget that camp when I got that handle. And I almost tried to tell you not to give it to me, because for, former captain in the army to be bestowing a 25-year-old the term leader in a tribe full of leaders, that was huge. And then I realized something: leaders rise to the occasion.
Of course.
And so it was almost like you were prophesizing what would happen with that. And that's the type of leadership you get here. You don't get that anywhere else, even in all the other jobs I've had. Whether it was with Sig Sauer, whether it was up working for Columbia University through Allied Security, there was, no leadership in that capacity. So that's the other big benefit.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing all of that, and it's my honor for my part in it. And I think, wow, like, that first one you talked about with the anger, um. Because there's lots of things we hear about all the time. That's not one we hear about all the time, but I bet you that resonated with somebody hearing this. Like, that's important, right? Like, because there's a lot of that in the world today.
Mhm.
Some with good cause, but what an empowering thing to be able to replace that with something better. All the other things you've talked about. Wow. I'm moved by everything you said. Thank you. Um, what would you say, if I asked you to give some advice to a beginning student? You're talking to a new white belt who wants to become a black belt leader like you one day. What would you say?
It's the same thing I tell all of our new students. Trust the law of the process. I am one of the most self-critical, attention to detail. If I don't throw my technique correctly, I'll know it before the instructor does because I've already beat myself up on it 12 times. Um, trust the law of the process. Trust the law of the process. You guys are where you are because you've just started something. And anytime you just start something, you're never going to be excellent at it right off the gate. So trust that law of the process and allow us to coach you there, but also allow yourself to be patient with yourself
Yes.
in that law of the process. What you're going through is something incredible. And if you're patient with yourself and you trust us, we'll get you wherever you want to go.
I love that. First of all, such a great explanation of the law of process. Good job. Second of all, you know how I always talk to people about the fact that becoming a black belt leader in and of itself is an amazing accomplishment, but more importantly, it's an analogy for anything in life.
Mhm.
And for the rest of one's life. And so I love what you said because, you know, unfortunately, we have an epidemic today of people that truly never become excellent at anything because they're not willing to,
Stick at it long enough.
right,
Yeah.
right. One, they won't begin at all, maybe,
Mhm.
out of fear or whatever. But then two is that if they do, they don't stay long enough they give in to either of the deceptions, right? Like the one deception is, I got this, and they quit before they actually become excellent. Or the other deception is the opposite, the one that, like you said, is so hard on themselves that they don't think they can get this, and that's not true either.
Mhm.
And I think that what you said is so true because, even professionally speaking, like, I had another podcast interview not too long ago with Lee Milter. She's a really a prolific author and motivational speaker, and like, I mean, that, really. And it was interesting because she told me, and she actually, I think she said it off of the interview, but she said, what you wrote about in your book, she said, what you wrote about in your book, you should do a version for people that are in business. She said, like people in business can use everything that you teach as part of your program
Yep.
to make their business better. And so, I mean, the reason that sprung to my mind right now is because what you said, it's like, even that part of what we do, like, you just got to be willing, because you're not good at whatever job you take. You're not good at whatever. When I was a lieutenant in the military, you know, that was the thing. You walked in, like, we were taught leadership, but I didn't have the subject matter expertise necessarily on several of the jobs I had. So you go in and you're bad at it until you're good at it, right? Like, it's the
Yep.
and you know, I think that when we can get somebody to competent black belt leader, and they've experienced the feeling of having that level of success,
Mhm.
of having gone through that long enough to be confident and competent, it's duplicable to every other area of their life.
Absolutely. One of the biggest things that I use from here and white belts and all of our new students, I want you to really understand this, is the stress test.
Yes.
The stress test is one of my favorite things because you've had your block of training and then we throw you in to a very intense exercise, right? Which is very similar to you trying something new. It's intense for you
Exactly.
in a different way. You're mentally overwhelmed, but we throw you in it at a fast pace and stuff flies out of you. And I got to tell you, most of our students, when they do their first stress test, their technique looks even better in the stress test than it does in the training.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that's one of those things, like if you're patient with yourself and you trust us and you go through the process,
Yeah.
when that stress test happens, it
Yeah.
just flies out. And that's how I took every thing that I was new at
Yeah.
and approached it. All
Love
right,
it.
stress test. Let me just get in and get it done.
You're so right, and it's true. It's a great analogy in so many ways, right? But because it's true, what you're the way we're using it now for the law of the process, right? You're a
Mhm.
beginner to something, but it's even true when you are good at something, and then all of a sudden something totally else changes everything.
Yep.
You know, like when the pandemic hit us, and like people all over the world were, some were reacting good and some were reacting poorly and whatever. And I mean, a lot of businesses went under and all kinds of stuff. I mean, talk about a stress test,
Yeah.
right? So that, it's like that part of our missions that says, so that you can survive and thrive in any situation.
Mhm.
That's the stress test piece, right? And then empowered to lead where you're going into the future. That's kind of the other piece, right? Like, so I love it. I love it. I love it. You get me excited and I start rambling. I need to stick to the plan here. What about if you were going to just give some advice to, I guess we kind of already talked about this some, but somebody that's listening to this, or, and it's been on the fence, is considering joining, but maybe for whatever reason hasn't, or hasn't even come in to try it yet. What would you say to them?
You gotta just do it. If you're considering joining and you haven't yet, here's my biggest message to you. Any reason you think why you shouldn't join, I've been there. I was overcoming anger, I was overcoming financial issues, I was overcoming all kinds of different reasons, self-doubt, self-deprecation, not wanting to socialize. What you guys don't understand and what you guys never see out of me is I'm the biggest introvert you'll ever meet.
Yeah.
I'm completely content not being around people, being off on my own and doing my own thing. But that was a challenge for me to overcome too. But once you get started, what you don't see, or actually what you will see, is a change in you in a very short period of time.
Yeah.
I had a student come up to me, and I'm not gonna name any names, but they're going through a very hard time. And they joined us at just the right time. And they made a comment to me just recently, and they said, someone very close to me said that I'm singing again. And I don't have like a furrow in my eyebrows. Like I don't look like I'm upset all the time. And I mean, just the comment from that person's support team outside of here and noticing how much they've changed in just the short period of time since they've been here.
Wow.
Because I mean, we're talking less than a month and they're noticing a massive change in attitude.
That was great.
And a massive change in how this person's carrying themselves. And that's the type of environment that we have here. So if you're on the fence about joining, get around us even more. Let us sow into you and be honest with us about what you're looking for. Because a leader can't lead unless he knows where he's leading. And we don't know where we're leading if you're not honest about what you're looking for.
That's great.
So help us help you, because that's what we're here for. We want to help you. We want to help you exceed in anything you set your mind to.
Excellent, Sensei James. What are some of your biggest goals this year?
Got a lot of goals. One of my goals is getting through my black belt test.
Your second degree? Yeah.
In September. One of my other goals is really, let me ask this, because I have different blocks of goals. Which goals are you looking for? Personal, professional?
Whatever you think you want to share with the tribe that would be useful at this time. And probably especially some of the stuff that will affect them around your place
Okay.
here, but you can share anything you want to. It's your interview.
Okay. So I mean, the first goal for me right now that I'm focused on is making it through my black belt test in September.
The second degree black belt test, to be clear.
Welcome
back.
Thank you, sir. one of my other things is I really want to, for us here, I really want to see us really hone in and master our outreach with the schools.
Mm,
That's one of my biggest things, and it's because I've only done it with you twice, where we've actually gone to the school. Because I wasn't quite as far along in the process when you did invite me to that. Uh, but watching you in front of the entire PE class and watching, all of the kids having so much fun and then hearing them like soak up the lessons on leadership, going through the 6 superpowers of the black belt and everything else. Uh, just seeing that impact. And even when we were going back and reintroducing myself to all the schools in the area, we went to, was it Pineview or Lake Myrtle? One of the two of them, but when we saw Coach
oh, yeah, Pine yeah,
Pineview, so we went to Pineview just to link up with the coach there, Mitchell.
yes, no, he's
No,
like Rebel.
okay,
Yeah,
um,
yeah, Epifino.
Epifino. There
Yeah.
we go. See, it was my apologies, gentlemen. When we went to link up with Coach Epifino, we went out there and we got to go out under the big canopy and
Yeah.
everything, and all the students were like, "Are we doing Krav Maga today?"
Yeah, yeah.
Like, sir, do we need to go get some pads? Like, let's go, let's do this. Like,
Awesome.
to see kids get excited about what I love, that's huge. So I want to sow that into all the schools in the area, and just getting that excitement out of them. I want to see all of the students that I've already built the relationships with go on to their next journey.
I love it.
That's going to be huge to me. Like, I can't wait for not just my black belt test in September, but everyone's that's
Yeah,
going.
I
And
love it.
then
I love it.
so that's one of my biggest things. Personal goals, Memorial Day, right around the corner. One of my personal fitness goals is I'm attempting the Murph for the first time. Had some medical issues that barred me from doing it, but we're gonna be closed on Memorial Day, and what I'm doing is come heck or high water, I'm gonna be doing the Murph in honor of all that have fallen, and that's a mile run, 300 squats, 200 push-ups, 100 pull-ups, closed out with a mile run, and as short of a period of time as you can, wearing either a plate carrier or a 20-pound trainer vest.
Wow.
And it's just something that means a lot to me, and I've always wanted to do. So that's my personal goal this year, and that's going to be my checkpoint because every year for the rest of my life, I'm going to do that on Memorial Day.
It's awesome. Well, I love it. And I think that everything you've talked about shows your heart for this and how wildly successful you're gonna be. I mean, particularly when you were talking about, the with the kids and at the schools, but the ones you have relationships here. And I mean, it makes it clear that I made a great choice by inviting you on here as a chief instructor in training, and you're going to be amazing. And it's interesting because we're all I had this talk with, actually it was with the team in a different way earlier, right? Like where I was talking about the fact that we're all in a growth curve,
Mhm.
like, and that you're either green and going or wrecked and rotting, and I'm going to the next level in my leadership. You're going through the next level in yours, and everybody else on the team is, and so is everybody in the program. And the cool thing is that the rising tide raises all ships, right? Like this is we're on to great and wonderful things, but I'm really proud and grateful that you're going to be a part of it as we take this great thing to many more people. Um, what, if anything, else? Usually, I always leave the last thing to say, what else would you like to share? Because there's usually something that's hanging out. Like, I wish you would asked about this. Like what else would you like to share before we call it a wrap?
A couple things. Um, the first one is for the students, right? And this is from my perspective as a student first. Take your training as seriously as you want it to be.
Hmm.
it doesn't matter what's going on, the more serious you take your training, the better your training will be. Um, dive into things. Be the first one in anything. That was something for me, especially with the self-confidence issues and the self-deprecation issues. Um, I didn't want to sit there and watch everyone else go and compare myself to them.
Mm,
I'll never be as good as them. I'll never do as good as them. I'll never, these were the thoughts that were going through my head. And the way I always overcame that was I just popped myself in the head a couple times, say stress drill time. All right, first one in, got it.
yeah,
That's why I was always the first one in on the stress drills.
close.
Same thing for Decker. Same thing when we get up and teach. I want to be the first one up there when we're doing our training as instructors and you're having us come up and teach.
For the audience, really quickly, Decker is demonstration, explanation, correction, repetition. One of the teaching tools that we use.
Yeah. So when we're in our instructor training, you have us come up and teach the other instructors and everything. And
Right.
I always want to be the first one up because I get it out of the way and then I have time to critique myself in a positive way.
That's awesome.
So try and be the first one to do anything. Get involved with everything. I mean everything you can here because it's all fun. And I have a lot of ideas and we've talked about a lot of things and we have a lot of good stuff coming here. But the more you get involved with, the more you learn, the more you grow, and the more we become an even closer knit tribe. So
Tools.
that's one of those things. And I want to get this message to everybody. Your time holding the pad is also your time training.
Mm,
Whether it's the paddles, whether it's the focus mitts, whether it's the kicking shields, whatever it is. I didn't learn that lesson until very late on in my curriculum.
mm,
And I was used to just kind of hold things haphazardly. But then I started doing things from a good guard stance, holding the focus mitts
Yeah.
from a good guard stance, holding the kicking shield. And instead of just sitting there letting my partner beat up on me, I was watching how my partner was doing it.
mm,
Because a lot of the times my partner was faster or stronger than me, even though I was the big guy.
yeah.
Big guys sometimes have a hard time moving that mass. So I would watch the subtle little things. And so I became an active pad holder.
That's brilliant. Yeah.
And it just started shaping everything. So those are for the students. Those are some of the biggest things I want to share to our students. For me, I'm just so happy and grateful to be here. And I have a lot of exciting ideas and a lot of exciting things that we've already talked about, and I've already set some of them in motion that I want to bring to the dojo and just watch us help sow even more.
Love it.
Should I share?
No, I don't think
Okay.
we're going to any details. They can be surprised with the details, but I will say, I'm glad that it's such a mutual feeling. Proud and grateful to have you as a leader. And yes, Sensei James, you can feel how passionate and excited he is. And it is true that even with all the great events that we already have, including our Black Belt Leadership Program, we are adding even more. And in fact, the next 15 weeks, guys, that's like, and here's what the next 15 weeks is, if you can believe it or not. And of course, this is going to make this recording not evergreen, but that's okay. For those of you that are listening to this real time now, the next 15 weeks is the summer and then the back to school season. And all that's going to happen in the next 15 weeks, but we got so much excitement planned in it. And just make sure, like Sensei James advised wisely, that you participate in all of it that you can.
Actually, I got one last thing in closing.
Okay.
I don't know if I really hit on this, but since we're talking about it, I was referred here.
Oh yeah.
I was the bring a buddy.
Oh yeah. Wow.
So don't be afraid to bring your buddy, because look at all of the things positively that have happened through my life because somebody had the courage to ask me if I wanted to come.
That is so good, Sensei James. And Sensei James, you guys, if you may be watching this on video, but you may or may not be able to see, he's got tears in his eyes.
Come on, sir. I was hoping they didn't see that.
I think that's awesome. It happens to me too. And that's when you know you're doing what you're called to do.
Mhm.
Because what you're feeling and what you've experienced is what you now get to help others feel and experience. And man, we could go on forever.
Yeah.
But I think we're gonna close this one out because we don't want to be competing with people that yeah. I heard a guy bragging today that he had like an 8-hour YouTube video or something. Oh,
I'm better with the short form stuff, sir.
but I tell you what, guys, make sure this has been great, and Sensei James is great, and he's going to be an amazing addition to our team. And so I can't wait for all of you to get to work with him on the floor. Prepare to live, empower to lead. Make it a
Yes.
great day. Whoosh.